Somewhere in 1917, in the crowded streets of Harlem, New York City, a group of young men gathered beneath the bright sun, wearing freshly pressed uniforms that seemed almost too big, carrying the weight of expectation and hope alongside their personal doubts. And yet they walked with a certain pride, a determination that no prejudice could fully diminish. They were the 15th New York National Guard, soon to be redesignated as the 369th Infantry Regiment, a unit made almost entirely of African American soldiers, many of whom had grown up in neighborhoods that pulsed with music, culture, and an unyielding sense of community, yet also with inequality and hardship, a paradox that shaped every step of their lives. The streets buzzed with life, but for these men, the future was elsewhere, somewhere across the Atlantic, on a battlefield that they had only read about, imagined, and now were about to enter with courage that few could anticipate. Training was grueling, not because it was cruel, but because it demanded more than just strength. It required focus, discipline, and the ability to trust men who, in many ways, were strangers yet shared the same backgrounds, fears, and ambitions. The instructors drilled them day after day, marching in lines that seemed endless, issuing commands that echoed in the early morning chill. Yet each man held his head high, understanding that this preparation was the only thing standing between him and chaos once the guns of Europe rang out. In Harlem, families watched parades, waved handkerchiefs, and whispered prayers for sons, brothers, and friends, fully aware that the honor of wearing the uniform might not shield them from the prejudice waiting across the ocean, yet believing, or hoping, that their service could become a bridge between the world they knew and the world they hoped to help shape. When the order came to cross the Atlantic, the regiment boarded transport ships that smelled of coal, salt, and nervous anticipation. Days turned into nights, the horizon stretching endlessly, waves crashing against the hull, as men stared at the ocean with a mix of awe and fear. Letters were written, tucked into pockets, dreams whispered quietly, and friendships strengthened in the quiet, shared moments that soldiers alone understand. Some sang songs from Harlem streets, others recited poetry or jokes, laughter occasionally cutting through the monotony, a reminder of home and humanity, a fragile shield against the uncertainty awaiting them on European shores. Upon arrival in France, the reality of American racial policy became immediately apparent. Despite their readiness, their discipline, and their willingness to fight, the U.S. Army did not trust African American soldiers to serve alongside white units. The command decided instead to assign them to the French Army, an unusual move that initially felt like exile, a dismissal of their loyalty, yet it also offered a unique opportunity. The French, hardened by years of warfare and less encumbered by American racial prejudices, cared about effectiveness, bravery, and the ability to hold the line. The Harlem Hellfighters would discover that in the trenches of France, skill and courage could speak louder than the color of one's skin. Life on the Western Front was grueling, not cinematic, not heroic in the way films later imagined, but profoundly human. Mud soaked through boots and uniforms. Rain fell unrelentingly, turning trenches into rivers, while the distant rumble of artillery became a constant backdrop, a hum that never fully faded. Orders came quickly, sometimes barely understood, yet the regiment adapted, finding rhythm and cohesion in chaos. They learned the terrain, the patterns of enemy movement, the nuances of coordinating with French forces, who often spoke a language few of them fully understood. And through it all, the Harlem Hellfighters maintained their spirits, drawing on music, camaraderie, and a shared sense of purpose to endure challenges that would have broken many others. Perhaps one of the most remarkable aspects of their service was how they brought the culture of Harlem with them. Music, jazz, and ragtime infused brief moments of relief and joy into an otherwise grim routine. Trumpets, drums, and voices rose above the mud and wire, reminding them of home, of streets filled with life, of families and lovers, of nights spent dreaming in the small apartments and brownstones they had left behind. Music became not just entertainment but a thread connecting them to their identity, a statement that even in war, their culture would survive, thrive, and inspire. Officers, initially skeptical, began to notice how morale improved, how cohesion strengthened, and how these men, underestimated by many, could inspire both themselves and others in ways that had nothing to do with combat prowess alone. The Harlem Hellfighters fought longer than almost any other American unit, spending more than 190 days in continuous action, a testament to endurance, resilience, and an unyielding commitment to duty. They were sent into sectors that were considered exceptionally dangerous, often where the French forces themselves had suffered high casualties. Yet the regiment held firm, coordinating movements, relaying messages, and ensuring that lines did not collapse. Their reliability earned them respect from both French and American officers, gradually dismantling some of the preconceived notions about race and ability that had shadowed them since their enlistment. Each successful mission was a small victory against both the enemy abroad and prejudice at home. The combat experience, while relentless, was also interspersed with moments that revealed the humanity of war. Soldiers shared rations, exchanged stories, wrote letters home, and relied on humor to navigate fear and exhaustion. The Harlem Hellfighters developed rituals, inside jokes, and shared traditions that bonded them in ways few outsiders could understand. These moments were as important as any battle plan, for they reminded the men why they fought, who they were, and what they hoped to preserve and protect. Not just the freedom of nations, but the dignity of individuals whose courage was often ignored by history. Recognition came, but slowly. The French awarded them medals and honors, acknowledging valor and steadfastness in ways that contrasted sharply with the reception they would face upon returning to the United States. Newspapers, historians, and citizens in France celebrated their contributions, while back home, racial segregation remained the norm, and acknowledgement was sporadic, filtered, or altogether absent. Yet the men of the 369th did not complain. They had learned early that service was its own reward, that integrity, courage, and resilience mattered more than applause, and that the quiet dignity of their actions would ripple across communities, generations, and history in ways no medal could fully capture. As the war concluded and the soldiers returned to New York, Harlem itself welcomed them with parades, bands, and applause, yet the reality of American life tempered the celebrations. Schools, neighborhoods, and public spaces remained segregated. Opportunities remained unequal. Some men struggled to translate battlefield recognition into civilian success, while others channeled their experiences into leadership, education, or business, carrying lessons of solidarity, endurance, and ingenuity into every aspect of life. The impact of the Harlem Hellfighters extended far beyond military achievements. They became symbols of possibility, of challenging assumptions, and of striving toward excellence regardless of societal constraints. Their legacy is vast, inspiring jazz musicians, writers, artists, and activists, influencing military policy and the perception of African American soldiers, reminding future generations that valor is not bound by race, that culture enriches resilience, and that commitment to duty can overcome prejudice. Today, when reflecting on their story, one sees not just a military unit, but a tapestry of human experience, courage under pressure, creativity in adversity, joy amidst hardship, and the profound consequences of believing in oneself when others doubt. The Harlem Hellfighters teach us that true heroism is not always recognized immediately, that sometimes the quietest acts shape the future most profoundly, and that every individual, regardless of circumstance, can change the world through perseverance, solidarity, and unwavering integrity. History often highlights decisive battles, famous generals, or dramatic victories. Yet the Harlem Hellfighters remind us that lasting change frequently emerges from unexpected sources, from those overlooked, underestimated, or marginalized. Their story encourages reflection. What talents, what potential, what courage do we fail to recognize in our own time because it does not fit conventional expectations? How many quiet heroes are shaping outcomes while the world focuses elsewhere? Perhaps the lesson is not just to honor the past, but to open our eyes, broaden our understanding, and recognize that history's most profound moments often begin in small, unseen acts, in choices made without applause, yet with consequences that echo far beyond the moment.